You're listening to CFRN, a community of believers who trade for a living. To learn more about who we are, what we do, and how we do it, call toll-free 1-866-928-3310, and we'll send you out a no-obligation information kit absolutely free. 866-928-3310. The CFRN E-Mini Futures Cast is now on Stitcher. Listen to us on your iPhone, Android phones, BlackBerry, and WebOS phones. Stitcher is smart radio for your phone. Find it in your app store or at Stitcher.com. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio.
Are you ready, Steve? Andy? Yeah! Bert? Well, all right, fellas. Well, let's go!
You're listening to CFRN, the Christian Financial Radio Network.
Today's broadcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/CFRN. Over 85,000 titles. Choose from mystery, romance, religion, science, technology, business, New York Times bestsellers, even children's books. You name it, Audible has it. With 85,000 titles to choose from, you're sure to find the perfect audiobook for yourself or to give as a gift, and it's absolutely free. Just point your browser to audibletrial.com/CFRN. That's audibletrial.com/CFRN. And become a part of the audiobook revolution by downloading your free audiobook today. audibletrial.com/CFRN.
Hey, trader, want to get rich quick? Well, good luck with that. If, on the other hand, you actually want to learn how to trade, the place to be is www.cfrn.net. Tune in Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern for our daily devotional, and then spend the next 3 hours learning how it's done from professional traders who actually trade for a living. That's www.cfrn.net. Every trading day from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. CFRN, a community of believers who trade for a living.
Good afternoon, traders, and welcome back to the CFRN E-Mini Futures Cast. This is the daily broadcast of Indeterminate Length, where we discuss all things E-Mini, along with some really big ideas on the finer points of trading gold, bonds, crude, sugar, the euro, and even T-bills. Joining us today from our studios in Boston, Mr. Michael Bork. From our trading desk in Chicago, Mr. Burton Schlichter. Now, to get things started, let's go to our host and founder in Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Here's Dwayne.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Today is Thursday, 15th day of July, 2021. Thanks so much for joining us. Whoever you are, wherever you are, we're just glad to have you right here, right now. If you can't see the screen I have up, go to our home page at cfrn.net. On the right-hand side of the page, click the big microphone, follow the instructions. You'll be registered in about 30 seconds, and that will give you one-click access to the show each and every day. It also gives you access to the chat box so that you can ask questions and participate in the discussion. On the days you're out of the office, away from your desktop, point any internet-connected browser to cfrn.net/live. There you'll find a live, real-time simulcast of the show. As it unfolds, you just won't have access to the chat box. We also stream live during the show on our YouTube channel, which is very easy to remember, youtube.com/CFRN. And while you're there, be sure to click the subscribe button and the little bell. This way, anytime, not only will you have one-click access there, but anytime we go live outside of our regularly scheduled broadcasting, you'll be notified. Not only do we stream live each day, we archive each and every daily show. Currently, there's over 1,700 daily live broadcasts archived there for your educational and viewing pleasure. And with that, we'll open with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your blessings, for your mercy, and for your grace. As we gather together, we praise you for this day and your purpose for it. We ask, God, that you would reset our agendas as we sit in your presence. For you assure us that where two or more gather in your name, that you'll be right there with us. Recalibrate our intentions and refocus our hearts. Your will for our lives does not always reflect our plans for our lives. Change them to reflect your will and your purpose. Help us to understand that we don't need full clarity to walk into the unique purpose that you created us for. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right, guys. Happy Thursday. Let me give you the numbers from around the world. Cash markets, the indices as they're called. Starting here at home in the U.S., the Dow is down 29 points. NASDAQ is down 133. S&P 500 down 21. And the Russell 2000 down almost 5. Closest thing to a mover and a shaker, the NASDAQ, which is down almost 1%. But I might add that all four are on the same side of the street today. Some barely, some a little more than barely, but they're all red. Now, in the commodity basket, crude oil down 35 cents, trading 72.78 last. Gold up $1.10, trading 18.2610 last. And silver up 8 cents, trading 24.35 last. In the Asian markets at the close, Nikkei down 329 points, that's a little over 1%. The Shanghai, on the other hand, up 36 points, which for the Shanghai is a gain of a little over 1%. And the Hang Seng up 208 points, which is about 0.75%. And in the European markets at the close, FTSE down 79, DAX down 159, the CAC down 65. So for the FTSE, that's a little over 1%, for the DAX, just over 1%, and for the CAC, just under 1%. That gives us a mixed day in Asia, a red day in the UK, and so far, it's a big red Radio Thursday here in the US of A. So with that, we'll go to Michael and get a recap of what happened in the live training room today. After that, I'll be back. We'll look at the logic alerts, the concierge trade alerts, and today's Thursday. Last week, Dr. Tom was under the weather, but as far as I know, he will be joining us later in the show today. Michael, I got you locked and loaded. It's all yours. Take it away.
All right, here we go. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today is Thursday, the 15th day of July, 2021. If you've not taken a free trial with us and you want to take a free trial with us, simply go to the home page here at cfrn.net, scroll down to right here where it says free 5-day trial, no credit card required. Click on that and you'll be brought to this page, eminitrainingschool.com. On this page, all that we ask for is your name, your email, and your phone number. Tell us the biggest training challenge so we can tailor one-on-one training just for you. Hit the send button, you'll be sent a confirmation link. You must click on that confirmation link. Okay, if you don't click the link, we don't know that you took the free trial. I'm sorry, I was mixing things up. We don't know that you took the free trial, so you gotta make sure you click on that link. All right, now over here, let's see, over here. If you're gonna read the spreadsheet, you could read all the CFTC risk disclosures down at the bottom. Today, as I said, is the 15th day of July, 2021. Today we made 3 ticks in crude, 28 ticks in gold, and we lost 4 on the ES, put us at plus 260 on the morning session. Today it took 7 minutes and 3 trades to get to the goal for the day. At that point, we're up $102.50, and we took a total of 27 trades. So on the month now, we're at $6,387. That's over 10 trading days. averaging $638 per contract per trading day. On the year, we've gone 133 out of 134 consecutive days of getting our goal, and that puts us at $87,277. That's over 134 trading days, averaging $651 per contract per 2-hour trading day. Okay. All right, so let's get into what happened here. We'll start out with the ES. Right, we ended up negative on the ES, but let's go into why. Okay, go all the way back here. Our first trade on the ES was right here. It was a short trade right here, and we bumped our stop to plus 2 ticks. Once we had closed down below the MA1 right here, we bumped our stop to plus 2 ticks, and it took us out with 2. Then I was putting target numbers down here for the ES, and you see it was doing pretty well getting to them. This was a pullback number, but it was getting pretty well getting to them. This one right here, we picked up another 2 ticks. I believe that got us to 4. Okay, then we had a break-even trade here. We missed along right there. Got a break-even right there. Got kind of choppy. It started to turn around, broke out of that consolidation period there, and we got another break-even trade right here. We're looking for it to get down to here on this move, but it didn't do it until way over here. And this was the next one down that I had seen. Again, same move down right there. We had another break-even trade there. We missed that short right there. That would have been break-even had we gotten it. And this was a long trade we took right here that stopped us out pretty much to the tick and then kept going up. Well, a little bit up. That was our last trade of the morning. That put us at -4. Okay, we missed a trade here and there. This one would have been a break-even. This one would have stopped out. And then we got into the break. Now during the break, it looks like there was a short right in here. Maybe 2 shorts right in here. Okay, and that was it for the break. Now crude oil. Crude oil was a challenge today. I had 3 stop outs in crude. But let's get into the gains first. See here in the pre-market, crude opens up at 9 a.m. and you can see crude had a couple of pretty good moves here right in the pre-market. We weren't involved in that, but this first one right here, we got 5 ticks on. The next one, I believe, was a break even. It was. Then we stopped out. This is our first screen to stop out, put us at -3. All right, then right there, we picked up from -3 to +5, so we picked up 8 ticks there. And actually, I think I might have entered. No, we picked up from -3 to +5, so we picked up 8 ticks. Then I think this is where we picked up 8 ticks, and I think I missed that one. And somewhere we picked up 2 ticks and 3 ticks. Right in here, one of those was 2, one of those was 3, and one of those was 8, I think. And then we had a break-even trade. Then after that, we picked up a little something there that I didn't count, and here we stopped out. That put us to -8. Then somewhere in here, we had a +14. Oh, no, we didn't. Hey, look, I messed that up. We had a -8 there, then a -8 there. So this -8 put us to 0, then this -8 put us to -8. And then we missed a trade here that went and did everything it should have done. Then we grabbed the second part right here and we got +14 on that. And that ended up putting us at +6. Then we had 5 more there to put us at +11. And then we stopped out again. So I had 4 stop outs on crude today. And that put us at +3. So crude, though it was going to the levels that we thought it was going to go to, it stopped me out to the tick a couple times. And right here, these 2 stop outs were, it was just in some chop. You see how it whipped up, stopped me out, then whipped right back down and stopped me out again. So it kind of faked me out right there. And one of these was a mistake. This one here was a mistake because it never gave the down close, and I jumped early on that one. And it stopped me out. So that was a mistake. But anyway, we ended up with a +3. During the break, it looks like we would have waited in here for it to move all the way down here. So there was 1 trade right here during the break. Okay. Now, the gold. We started out here on gold. Our first trade on gold was right here. We picked up 3 ticks. Then I think we picked up a tick there to get us at +4. Then a break even there. And then from +4, we went to +8. So we picked up 4 ticks there. Looks like another break even, then 2 ticks there to get us to plus 10, then 8 ticks to get us to plus 18, then a break even and 2 ticks. We missed a trade there, and 2 ticks to get us to plus 20, and 8 there to get us to plus 28, and another break even right there. You can see gold was going to all the targets. Now this one here, these targets started to develop as it went up here, and I was hoping we were going to get a pullback on that, but we didn't. And then this was all during the break right here. It gave an up close right here that I didn't do. It was during the break, and I was expecting it to get up to this level. I didn't know if we were going to get a pullback before it got up there, but it did pull back all the way back here. If you went long on this right here, it would have stopped you out. But it did continue up, and it did get up to this level eventually over here, but it didn't give any trade setups for it. Okay, so that was our gold for the day. Now, something happened yesterday, and it's got me curious. This is the Canadian dollar, and the Canadian dollar is kind of sensitive to the crude oil inventory numbers that we have. And the crude inventory numbers really, the crude market hasn't been as sensitive as it normally is. But yesterday, I don't know if y'all remember, I went over this yesterday. Crude went kind of nuts here at 11:30. That was because they pushed the inventories off from 10:30 to 11:30 yesterday. That's why we had all this garbage through here. And the inventory numbers came out. And yesterday, the inventory numbers were twice what they were anticipating. Okay, now they call it good news. I call it bad news. But what it worked out to be was twice what they were anticipating. And so it just doesn't make any sense, I guess it does. The demand was there. No, it doesn't. We don't have the supply, and prices dropped. And prices should be going up when we have excessive demand, not excessive supply. But anyway, I was thinking about looking at the Canadian dollar on Wednesdays when it's about time for the crude inventories to come out. And that might be something that I do maybe starting next week. Let me see where I put that thing. Here it is. Because you see the Canadian dollar yesterday, in that same time, this was 10:30 when the crude inventories normally come out, or leading up to the crude inventories coming out. But things were nice and tradable in here yesterday on the Canadian dollar. And so maybe on Wednesdays, I'll take a look at the Canadian dollar coming forward. Just something to look at. Okay, but for us today, we ended with, well, during the break, there was one trade here. Okay, we ended with +3 on crude this morning. Okay, so back here to this, if you're going to read the spreadsheet, you got to read all the CFTC risk disclosures down at the bottom. Today's the 15th day of July, 2021. We lost 3 ticks in crude, made 28 ticks in gold, and we were -4 on the ES, put us at +260 on the morning session. Today it took 7 minutes and 3 trades to get to the goal for the day. At that point, we're up $102.50, and we took a total of 27 trades this morning. So on the month now, we're at $6,387. That's over 10 trading days, averaging $638 per contract per 2-hour trading day. On the year, we've gotten our goal for the day on 133 out of 134 days, and that puts us at $87,277. So 134 trading days, averaging $651 per contract per 2-hour trading day. Now we'll go here. If you've not taken a free trial with us, you can go to the homepage at cfrn.net and click on the red button that says free 5-day trial, or you can just go directly here to eminitrainingschool.com. On this page, all that we ask for is your name, your email, and your phone number. You can tell us the biggest trading challenge so we can tailor one-on-one training just for you. Hit the send button, you'll be sent a confirmation link. You must click on the confirmation link, okay? If you don't click that link, we don't know that you took the free trial, so you got to click on that link, right? All right, and that's it. With that, guys, I'm going to pass it back out to fabulous Phoenix, Arizona. Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Dwayne, if you are ready.
Yes. I'm ready. Okay, recap of the recap.
Today it took 7 minutes and 3 trades to get to 102.50.
Good job. Good job. Okay, guys, a reminder, today's Thursday, which is the members only workshop tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you new, if you've been on the trial, If you're ready to become a passport holder, which is a lifetime membership to everything we do, everything we've ever done, and anything we might do, well, you just go to eminifuturestrading.com. That's where you get your passport. And then Valerie will do her thing and send you all the links and stuff you need to get your indicators indicating and access to all the alerts and all the channels, everything we do. And you'll get an invitation to be in the members only workshop tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. If you have questions, call 949-42-EMINI or just send an email to support@cfrn.net. And that passport, it really does provide everything a trader needs. I know if you, whoever you are like most other traders, whoever they are, you've spent tons of time and treasure buying all kinds of trading stuff. But yet, here you are. Well, if you're tired of buying trading stuff, this is lifetime membership. It's everything you need. From the daily live training, which Michael just recapped, it's 2 hours a day with a live instructor, interactive. You're watching him put on and take off trades in a live markets, and you ask questions. Why'd you do that? Why'd you say that? Well, what does that mean? Well, what if this happens? And you get an answer to your question live in real time. It's the best way to learn something, okay? And because you have your own set of charts and indicators, you're able to trade right along with him. So while you'll never be able to completely stay in step with him tick for tick, because it's a fast moving environment during those 2 hours, you'll get the hang of it by repetition. As he puts on a trade, you watch, you trade in sim. We want you trading coming out of the gate, day one when you become a passport holder, just not in your live account. You got to stay in the sim account until you put together 10 consecutive days in a row where you reach your goal in 10 trades or less. Once you do that, our blueprint will give you the green light to go live with one contract. You're going to trade that one contract until you increase your account balance by $2,000. Then the blueprint's going to give you the green light to add a second contract, and then a third, and then a fourth, and then a fifth. But you only add one at a time, and you only add with profit you earned in the market. Following that blueprint makes it difficult to blow up another account. It's not impossible, of course, but you're going to have to break a lot of rules, and it's going to take a while. So that's the deal on the passport and the meeting tonight. 9 out of 10 new traders fail. Now, why would I boast or brag about that? Well, not boasting or bragging, I'm just reporting the news. This article came out 2006 in Futures Magazine. Needless to say, because in 2005 I went from equities to futures, I wasn't too happy to read this. But although they gave you all sort of statistics and figures about, to back up and verify and confirm that this is a true story, they never said why. So I began my discovery, went down my path of discovery to figure out why. I wanted to know why 9 out of 10 people could fail at anything. I mean, it's not that bad for Navy SEALs or airline pilots or brain surgeons, really tough jobs. And, trading is not easy, but it can be simple. And the first step to making it simple is to actually have another live human being teach you how to do the job. None of us would ever think of becoming an electrician or a plumber or a rocket scientist without first finding someone, a school, a university, or, in the case of the plumber or electrician, someone that we could be an apprentice for. I mean, obviously someone has to teach us how to do the job. Trading is so different. There's a low barrier to entry. With a few $1,000s, you can open an account. Another $20, you can get some business cards that say trader right there on it. You got proof. See, it says on my business card, I'm a trader now. And it's like giving a kid, a sack full of razor blades and telling them to go play out in traffic. There's just no way that can end well. I am happy to say that inside the walls of CFRN, this number is not true. Okay? Because CFRN traders not only have a teacher, they have a business plan, they have a trading plan, they have live training daily, they have unlimited private mentoring, they're taught a proprietary methodology, they own a powerful set of Emini indicators, and they have access to around-the-clock alerts. Because our goal is to teach you to find opportunity in the market without our help. We help you up until the point where you no longer need our help. It's like when you're teaching your son or daughter how to ride a bicycle. Okay? You run along behind them holding the back of the seat to make sure they don't fall over until that moment in time when they get equilibrium and you slowly let go of the seat. They keep going. You're ecstatic. And it lasts for a minute until they realize you're no longer holding the seat. And then what do? Crash and burn. Right? But Dad, Mom, you're there to pick them up, brush them off, put them right back on. Do it again. Do it again. So pretty soon, they don't need your help anymore. It's just, hey, can I go ride my bike? Sure you can. Stay out of the street. Right? So, everything a trader needs, one low price, eminifuturestrading.com. Once you have a passport, there's nothing else out there that you need. There's nothing else out there that's going to help you become a better trader. Now, a lot of the websites and a lot of the emails you get are very clever, very compelling. They've hired professional ad copy writers, to write the script that you're reading. But what happens over and over again? Most people go through a cycle of they buy some stuff, they work it and they work it, and when they can't get it to work, they buy some more stuff. And they work it and then they buy some more stuff. They go to these webinars and the guy's really good at pitching, and so you buy even, and then you swear it off. That's it. I'm done. I'm never buying another thing until you do. So, if you want to put an end to all of that, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then eminifuturestrading.com. We're transparent in everything we do. There's no mystery. There's no magic. We simply teach you the truth about trading. Period. No algorithms. Not that there's anything wrong with algorithms. Not a million different indicators and oscillators arguing with each other. No. Our whole strategy, methodology, and indicators are very, very simple. Once you understand that this is a business based on probabilities, once you accept that, once you accept that you cannot know the future, because that's not how God created this universe, once you accept that, now you're ready to actually learn how to trade. Because you, not only can you not know what's going to happen next, you can't control what's going to happen next, but you can know with a high degree of probability what the next high probability move is once you learn how to read your chart and understand that price flows on a 1-minute chart the same way it does on a monthly chart. From support to resistance, back to support, back to resistance, over and over again and again. It's a never-ending cycle. Our weekly trading zones provide you with fixed support and resistance for the entire week. Our indicators give you dynamic support and resistance. In other words, what's happening right now. With the guidance of the indicators showing you dynamic support and resistance, that will always lead you to the weekly trading zone above or the weekly trading zone below. Price is always trying to get to a zone. Once you become a trader, you'll get the zones Monday morning, 6:15 a.m. Eastern. We've published the zones since December 14th, 2009, over a decade. And they're still doing the same thing today that they did the first time we published them. Okay, I don't have an updated recap yet from Valerie, so let me go and find the recap she posted last night. And it might be that that one's already all caught up. So she published one last night. So let me put that up on the screen. Give me a second to format it for this screen. Okay. Almost there. Again, Dr. Tom will be joining us today at some point. Alright, let's see if that did it. Oh, almost. One more click. Aha, got it. Okay, so here we go. Logic 247 is our around-the-clock E-mini alert service right here. Around-the-clock alerts. These are based on current price action. They could come out at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. We use Telegram as our messaging client. As a passport holder, you have access to all of our channels, both public and private. And so these alerts come out with a 20-minute buffer built in. Now, I say 20 minutes. There might be an occasion here and there where price gets to the trigger before 20 minutes, but there's a greater probability of it taking 2 hours than for it to get there early. Because what the purpose of the alerts is not for you to just trade and make money, but for you to learn how to find the opportunity yourself. So by sending you the alert well in advance of it triggering, you have a chance to go study your chart, study your alert, see where the window of opportunity is, and then as you approach the trigger, this is when you switch gears and start using what Michael and Valerie teach you in the live training room every day. I think I used the analogy yesterday of hunting, right? Hunting, you got your trigger man, the guy that's paid big bucks to go on the safari, but you have the scouts, the ones that go out, you know, ahead of the hunting group and look for signs, opportunity. Somebody's going to get to shoot something. Maybe there's poop or whatever, right? I'm not looking for poop, I'm just looking for opportunity. And so that's what the alert is. It's showing you the opportunity in the market, getting you ready that when price gets to that particular point, you now get to deploy everything Michael has taught you. Now you want to do that in Sim until you qualify to go live. As I said earlier, you need 10 consecutive days in a row where you reach your goal in 10 trades or less before you start trading real money, if you don't want to blow up another account. Okay, so far this week, since Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, you've issued 42 alerts, 11 never triggered. Still waiting on the outcome of 2 that give us 29 actionable alerts, 17% of which would be stopped out based on not risking more than $300 per contract per trade, less when possible, using market structure and a very simple 3-step process that we teach all of our traders. Now, we also have our original alert service, the concierge trade alerts, and the format for those is a little bit different. This is forward guidance for the entire session. These are published as a static report shortly after the Globex Open each evening. Globex opens at 6 p.m., so tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern, that's at the beginning of the Friday session. Even though it's still Thursday night, Friday session starts Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. It happens that way every day. There's a 1-hour break each day. The market, the Thursday session will end today at 5 p.m. Eastern. Friday will start at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you want to grab a screenshot of this, you can. Now, what this static report is telling you is that once it's posted, if the S&P starts trending towards 4373, that's bullish. So you're going to use the logic alerts and the stuff that Michael teaches you to find opportunities to be long. If price starts trending down towards 4362 after this report is published, that's bearish. So you'll use what you've learned in the live trading room and the logic alerts to look for opportunities to be short the market. Cover the S&P, the Dow, the Russell, crude oil, the NQ, gold, and silver. Okay. And we start every trading session, I recommend you start every trading session with a daily chart. And if you leave your charts running around the clock, you need to refresh. And there was a great example in the discussion group last night. I posted the daily chart without refreshing, and then I refreshed it, and it gave us a completely different look. And let me just show you so you'll understand why it's important. Let me go find it. Here we go. Okay. So, as you can see, last night the Thursday candle had gotten below the step line, which opens the door for lower prices. But you see how the daily BBC's got that little bend in it? Okay. After refreshing my chart, look where price is. It's above the step line. Okay. Below the step line, above the step line. This is after I refreshed the daily chart. So belay the comment about a top until price really is below the daily step line. And as you can see from the live chart here, it actually is, and it's traded all the way down to that trend line. And by the way, I added another trend line. What else did I put out last night? Oh, this is as everything just started triggering last night. This is the ES as it started to fill that window of opportunity we drew on the show yesterday. The Dow, Russell, NQ, crude. At that point in time, we'd had no trigger yet on gold, and probably a stop out coming on silver. Now, keep in mind the potential for good support at the bottom of the window drawn on today's show. I was writing this last night, so there it comes. It's the very thing we were looking for. Okay, and that's not based on some deep, dark, black magic secret. It's based on logic. We took out the low of this candle. Once we take out, that's a support level. See, price came down, buyers drove it back up. So if we trade through that support level, then where's the next area that we could logically expect there to be support? Where the buyers came in last time. Okay, buyers came in here, creating a support area, drove price up to resistance at red and falling, which sent price down to the BBC support. And so the low of that candle becomes very important. And there you have it. Okay, that's just how, trading is never going to be easy, but that's how simple it can be once you understand how to read the chart, how price flows, how our strategy works. Okay, and then there's those. Okay, all right, so we're all caught up. So that brings us to today's daily chart refreshed. Now, we had this channel for ages. Okay, it got violated a little bit on the upside, the downside. Then we rolled over to a new contract. On the old contract, price kept hitting this lower trend line, so I just left it on. Even with the new contract, the September contract, we can see that price is still respecting that lower trend line. And so I created a parallel line. So we had this channel, then we had this channel, and now we're back up into this channel. Okay, now if you're a technical analysis purist, you'll probably say, oh, well, you violated all kinds of things, and that's not really how it works. Well, it's how I see it. Call it personal preference if you want. But price did come down and hit that old trend line. Resistance, 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 support. We spiked it, and then it became support again. Okay, so the purpose of going to the daily chart first is to identify where major support and resistance are. Sometimes you can't see it on the smaller time frame, so the daily chart helps you identify. Of course, resistance is at the high of the session, which is 43.70 and a quarter, but we've got blue and climbing directly above price. Now, blue and climbing is bullish. See how price so nicely climbed the back of blue and climbing on this run up? But once price crosses from the left side to the right side of blue and climbing, and then blue and climbing gets directly above that candle, well, that's resistance. So if we take out the high of the day, then we can anticipate resistance at 43.75. If price starts to drop, we're right at the step line. Okay, we've already dropped down to the low of the session at 43.45, so that's potentially good support. If we trade through the low of the day, the 24% Fib retracement is right here at 43.22. We don't have a weekly trading zone at 43.22. If price were to trade through the 24% Fib retracement, then the next logical spot for the market to find support, just like it did here on this big red candle, the daily BBC. Now, everything that we do, everything we teach is fluid across all markets and all time frames. Anything I say about the S&P daily chart is also true of a crude oil 1-minute chart or a gold monthly chart. You've heard that markets are fractal in nature. And because that sounds very intelligent, you probably just nodded your head and go, well, that's deep. Markets are fractal. What the heck does that mean? Well, what it means is price flows the same in every market, in every time frame. From support to resistance, back to support, back to resistance, over and over, again and again, never ends. Okay? That's how price flows. Just grasping that concept will help you tremendously. Okay? Whether you use our methodology or strategy or not. Also understanding that important prices, important areas are almost always tested. That, again, will help you. Now, in the discussion group, I mentioned that the low of this candle, 43.4175, would be good support if price got down into that area. We actually dropped down to 43.45. Okay, so again, the low of this day, 41.75, and the low of today, 43.45. So there, we could drop a little bit further, and then this support, this low, will kick in, probably be good for at least a bounce. Now, another thing important about the daily chart, institutional traders, deep pocket traders, hedge funds, by and large, they're not watching a 5-minute chart, a 1-minute chart, a 30-minute chart, or a range chart. Not saying they never look at smaller time frames, but their business model is built off larger time frames, usually like a minimum of 4 hour, then daily, then weekly. And so on your smaller time frame chart, which we're going to go to here in just a second, you're not going to know the importance of 43.4175. You're not going to see that on a range chart. You're not going to see that on a 30-minute chart. But I assure you it's very important, not only because that's a support area and a low, but the institutions, the quote-unquote big money, smart money, whatever that means, they're seeing that. They're not seeing what we see on a range chart or what we might see on a 30-minute chart, But trust me, they all see that. And they know that. Remember, this was a red candle when it opened on this day, July 12th. We opened. Sellers drove us down to the step line. Buyers came in. And we finished the day green. Okay? So sellers did their best. But buyers won the session. Okay? Now, from that low at 41.75, price traded all the way up to 83.75. So I don't know, 40 points, give or take, at $50 a point. When you're trading 100 contracts like institutions do, that's a lot of money. Okay, so be assured that if price already hit this trend line, which may or may not be used by an institution, but buyers came in early because they anticipated this type of a rally. That's why we popped up off of that low. That's the logical explanation. Okay, you know, anybody with an internet connection or a TV show or a radio show could give you all kinds of reasons. That's just the simple truth about trading. People say support resistance is old-fashioned, horse and buggy. Okay. We've used it since we started. We fine-tuned it over the years. And so it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if price does make it down to 43, 41, 75, just be ready for a bounce. That's all. Nothing more than that. And since we have a red body going on the day, and since we've already breached the step line and we're actually right below it right now, I would venture to say that a move from here back down to the low of the session and possibly beyond is a high probability. Now, I know that there was some important economic news events today, and I did not. Here, let's just go to investing.com. Okay, and let's go to the economic calendar. This morning at 8:30, Stefan was kind enough to post this last night to give everybody a heads up. Continuing jobless claims came in, it looks like, better than expected. And that's a big economic report. The forecast was for 3,313. Came in 3241. Okay, and then we had another high impact initial jobless claims. Okay, that came in as forecast, exactly 360,000. And then the Philly Fed came in much worse than expected. Forecast was for 28, and the number was 21.9. And then Fed Chair Powell testified this morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. I don't know what he said. The markets don't seem to have reacted. Yeah, we got downside movement. All right, let's jump into the CTAs before Dr. Tom gets here. Okay, this is the Thursday session. This is the Wednesday session, the Tuesday session. The vertical line separates the session. This is where we opened last night at 6 p.m. Eastern. Price came down to the CTA at 43.62, and we traded down to a low of 57.75. So we'll call it 58. So that's a 4-point move, $50 a point, $200 per contract traded. And it took us a little better than halfway down through the window. Okay. Important prices, important areas are almost always tested. So when the market found support it went looking for resistance. When we approached the BBC from below, we expect that to be good resistance, and it was. We consolidated for a couple hours. That's pretty typical on the 30-minute. And then down we go through the trigger again. Okay. This time we make it all the way through the window and then some. We spike the area right here. These lows, we expected there to be good support. We spiked it a bit. Buyers came in, drove us back up, and then the opening candle right here. Okay, we had a bullish opening candle. Actually, now this is one reason that I don't trade the first 30 minutes. You know, Michael and Valerie, they just dive right in. I just prefer to wait. It's a personal preference. Price opened there, ran all the way down here, and then reversed inside of 30 minutes and closed just off the high.
You're old, Dwayne.
Hey, Dr. Tom, how are you?
Yeah, the reason you like to wait,
right,
is because you're old and you're more
That's
cautious.
Right. No, you nailed it. You nailed it. So how are you today?
I'm fine, brother. How you doing?
Good, good. Sorry we missed you last week.
Well, I just needed to do some things. I apologize.
No worries. You want me to send you the screens?
Not this time.
Okay.
No, I just want to chat.
All right, what would you like to talk about?
Well, what I would like to do is do a little pop quiz like I do sometimes. Just ask everybody what they think the greatest threat to our nation is. Just one or two words.
Okay, guys. If you got something, put it in the chat box. Dr. Tom has asked a question. What do you think the biggest threat to America is? I'm sure everybody has a healthy list. Whether anybody will put forth the effort to actually type something in the chat box, I can't say, because I don't know what's going to happen next. I do know what the next high probability thing is, and the next high probability thing is that everybody will just sit there and listen and wait to hear what other people say. So,
yeah, I saw a guy on his email signature, and he said if your opinion is whatever your favorite commentator or writer or pundit says, then you have no opinion. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, that is pretty good. All right, guys. All right, nobody wants to play. I think the greatest threat to the United States at the moment myself is the current administration in the White House, because they're going to allow China to do whatever they want. They're going to allow Russia to do whatever they want. They're going to allow people to force you to take this vaccination, even if you don't want to take it for good reason. I could go on. What do you think is the biggest threat?
I think we're facing a lot of them. The nation is becoming more and more ungodly, and we've had God's hand of protection on this nation for a long time because we were a godly nation. One of Biden's best buddies, the president of China, and by extension, the Communist Party, is a huge enemy of the United States. They hate us as much as the Arabs hate the Jews, and the Arabs want to push the Jews into the ocean, and China wants to just take us over. We have cyber threats, all kinds of terrorism, including domestic terrorists. Like President Trump wanted to designate the Antifa people as a domestic terrorist organization, because that's what they are. All kinds of things. But I think it would be interesting to look at what the guy who thinks he's president thinks is the greatest threat. because this is very instructive. On June 9th, Biden was meeting with, doing a photo op basically. Had a bunch of soldiers as his backdrop. And he warned the service members that top Pentagon officials consider climate change to be the greatest threat to America's national security. And this is an exact quote. He says, when I went over to the tank in the Pentagon, he likes to use, the cool words, like the military guys use. When I was first elected vice president.
Did he serve in the military?
No.
Okay. Neither did Trump, so I'm not picking on him for that. I'm just curious.
No, I mean, we used to have a really strong tradition in this country where it was almost impossible to get elected president if you hadn't been in the military, because
now you can't get elected if you haven't been an attorney. Trump being an exception.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if you know this, but when they were
did Obama have a law degree?
Oh yeah, he claimed to be a professor of constitutional law.
Oh, okay.
Which is hilarious.
Oh boy, that's funny.
He didn't know anything about the Constitution.
That's Saturday Night Live material.
When they were putting together the Constitution, there was serious consideration of putting in a prohibition against anyone who was an attorney or had ever even attended law school to hold public office. Think what a better nation we would be today if we had people, rather than lawyers, writing our laws. But anyway, here's this quote. When I went over the tank, when I was first elected vice president, he wasn't elected at all. Obama was elected, right? And he always likes to drop Obama's name in, my friend Barack, he's trying to get some rub off charisma because he has none of his own. He says, the military sat us down and let us know that the greatest threat facing America were the physical threats. This is not a joke. You know what the Joint Chiefs told us was the greatest physical threat facing America? And then he intones in serious global warming. Now,
that's just who started this? Who started this whole global warming stuff? Does anybody ever track it back to the originator?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that there was an originator, but there's a liberal.
Is there like the
so-called
father
scientist
of climate change? I mean, the first one that blew the whistle and alerted us to the impending doom. Besides that 12-year-old girl.
Not that I know of, but I do know the history. I mean, I was a kid, and we were being warned about global cooling. Remember that? How if we didn't stop using cars and fossil fuels and blah blah blah, then we're going to have another ice age, and the whole world will freeze over. Well, of course, things started warming up instead of getting colder. So then they switched gears, and the new thing became global warming, and that was the threat. Well, then things started getting cooler again. So they figured, you can't win for losing. Let's figure out something we can call it that is not dependent on any kind of facts, So that's when they came up with climate change. But poor old Joe can't even remember which is the woke thing to say today, so he called it global warming. The Joint Chiefs said the greatest threat facing America was global warming. Now, those guys did not become top generals and admirals by being idiots. And they don't believe that. And they never said that. But he wouldn't say who said this. It was just the Joint Chiefs, which is the actual panel of the top military officers and all of their aides. So it could have been any one of 40 people who supposedly said this. So he can get away with lying, and there's no one to challenge him. Now, Admiral Mullen, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he came right out in public and he said the greatest threat to our national security is the national debt. And I don't necessarily agree that it's the greatest threat, but it's certainly a great threat, because if we're so much in debt that we can't afford to, pay the military people and buy the bullets and the bombs and stuff, we could be in serious trouble. But he put his money where his mouth was. But I mean, to think that the president of the United States actually believes that global warming is the greatest danger facing us, it lets us know that we're in serious trouble, because this guy, how can he defend us if he doesn't know what the threats are? So here's my take on it. I mean, the greatest threat to our nation is the fact that we're becoming more and more ungodly. God has protected this nation so many times. I mean, right from the Revolutionary War, when the British outnumbered us 10-1 and they surrendered to us. Can't tell me that was a coincidence. That was God. China, Biden's best buddy, because they've given him billions of dollars. And this is not rumors anymore. They've got proof on his son's laptop. He claimed that he knew nothing about his son's business dealings, but there's photos of him with these people that his son was conspiring with. Yeah, well, it's like the old saying, man. This is a terrible drought, right? So Biden, he says, I have never taken a penny from a foreign government official. Well, I call that lying while telling the truth. He didn't personally take the money, but it's been proven that his brother and his son, documented, had taken millions, possibly billions, from the Chinese. And they're the one nation on earth that hate us more than any others. Just like the Arabs, hate the Jewish people and want to drive them into the sea. China wants to destroy us and basically take over the United States. Hyperinflation is a huge danger. Peter Schiff says it used to be considered the worst case scenario, possible but not very likely. And if it did, it would be like the end of the world, And he says, but today it's the most likely scenario. So he's not coming right out and saying we are going to have hyperinflation, but he said the next thing to that. Civil war is a very real threat in this country. Half the people hate the other half. That's a breeding ground for civil war. Terrorism, especially domestic terrorism, like these groups that are going around and rioting and burning down public buildings and raping and murdering and so on. And then the White House defends them. They want to let them out with no bail. They want to reduce at a time when we need police force at any time in our nation's history. They want to defund the police. Yeah, on Conservative Truth, I had different specials. Like we have sections like the election special and the video of the week and so on. I'm thinking of putting up a section called the outrage of the week, but there's just too many outrages every week. Think of all the ways that with very little cost and very little effort, other countries or domestic people could take us down. The internet is not that hard to take down. Our power grid, they've already tested it. China has taken down the power grid out in the West, and it was done by a single guy with a sniper rifle. And our water supply, what do you need? A gallon of some really potent poison in a rowboat. You go out in the middle of a reservoir, you dump it in there, people get sick or people die. And we're worried about climate change and building more windmills and
So back up for just a second to the guy with the rifle, the sniper.
Yeah.
What I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that story, or maybe I am.
This was about 8 or 10 years ago. It was a Chinese guy, and he was up in the hills in California, and they identified a key power installation where if it went down, it would take down a number of others, and those would take down others. And they use this I think they're 50 millimeter sniper rounds, and he shot exactly the right place. And they claimed it was just a natural, a breaker tripping or whatever. But I mean, for several hours, power's down. The Russians have successfully penetrated the NASDAQ. They didn't take it down, but they could see their fingerprints in there, the FBI cyber people, and they know that they were in there, that it was Russians. So none of this is that hard. And it becomes a lot harder when you get the people to hate and despise the police and the military. I mean, the police and the military, the only thing is standing between us and our nation becoming part of the UN. Because bottom line, that's the goal. America's a proud nation. We would not willingly give up our sovereignty to a global government.
Right.
But if things get bad enough, if they tear the economy up badly enough, if we default on our national debt and de facto become a bankrupt nation, then if the people are having a hard time just surviving, feeding their kids, keeping a roof over their head, then they'll capitulate. They'll say, okay, well, we'll become part of this global government. Now, this may sound a little far-fetched, but I've thought it through. And as we all know, if I think something, that is true, right?
Well, of course. Yeah, that goes without saying.
Well, Obama left office a very young man, comparatively to a lot of presidents. He still has a lot of energy left in him. He still wants to be relevant in some way. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I'm saying this is one scenario that is very possible. He could become the king of the world. Okay. All he'd have to do is admit that he wasn't born in Hawaii, that he was born in Kenya, because one of the rules are that no one can be the General Secretary of the UN if they're from one of the Security Council nations, which the United States is.
Right.
So, I mean, there's all kinds of evidence that the most damning is they've got his grandmother on camera saying that one of the proudest days of my life was when I held little Mommy in my arms right after he was born. Well, she's never left Kenya.
Little who?
Mommy.
Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. I guess that's what they call him around the old homestead. So
David just shared a headline in the audience there in the chat room. April sniper attack, knocked out substation, raises concern for country's power grid. Happened in 2013.
Okay, I thought it was a little farther back than that. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Anyway, when Obama was first running for president, he polled pretty high in the United States, but in Europe, he polled like 90 to 95%. Now, why does that matter? I mean, who cares what the Germans and the French and the Italians, who they want for president? They can't vote.
Right.
But
well,
what does? Well, they certainly made a lot of donations. They tracked back. He bragged about all those small donations he had. They tracked them back, and about a third of them came from Europe. This is for his second election, and that was after he had taken the TARP money that was supposed to bail out U.S. banks, and he bailed out a bunch of European banks, which was totally against the law. But they paid him back because they made all these millions of anonymous donations to his coffers for a second election. But anyway, the point is he's popular worldwide. People love him in other countries. So him becoming Secretary General, which is largely a non-position, it's ceremonial. They preside over meetings of the General Assembly, but he could make it whatever he wanted it to be, and he could literally become the dictator, and then force other countries, one way or another. We know there's going to be a one world government. If you study the Bible, I mean, that's clear. So I'm just giving a theory of how it could happen,
how it unfolds, how it comes to be.
And Obama could literally become the king of the world. So we're facing all these threats, and real threats, EMP attacks. We've had an EMP attack in the United States in the late 1800s, where a solar flare took out all the electronics. Fortunately, there weren't any electronics, but it took down the whole telegraph system. That was about as advanced as we were. And it was a real problem because the telegraph was how they communicated from one train terminal to another. Said this train's going to arrive at this time and on this track and so on. So they didn't have trains running into.
Would a Faraday cage protect someone from an EMP?
It would protect your devices, as I understand it.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't figured a way to, when you're constructing a house. Now, I couldn't tell you verbatim what a Faraday cage is. Well, my friend the internet can.
Right.
But, I mean, could a house be constructed so that hidden inside of the walls, in other words, you don't ever see it, just like when you go into your house, you don't see all the electrical wiring and plumbing pipes that run throughout your house. Could a house be constructed to be a Faraday cage / house? Is that possible?
It's a very interesting idea. I used to build houses, and I can't think of any reason why it couldn't be done. That would
a grounded metal screen surrounding a piece of equipment to exclude electrostatic and electromagnetic influences. That's the simple explanation.
Now, of course, your cell phone wouldn't work anymore.
Right. In fact, that's where, like, your secret agent type guys, I was watching some TV show the other day. I think the new Law and Order, I forget the name of it, but the bad guy, he had a wine cellar in his basement, and his wine cellar was also a Faraday cage. And so that's where he always conducted his high-level meetings and discussions with his evil counterparts, because anything that was said inside of that wine cellar, could not be detected. As the story
very
goes.
interesting.
Dum, dum.
Very interesting. I've looked into these tornado rooms lately because they can serve several functions. Excuse me, just one second.
Faraday cages cannot block stable or slowly varying magnetic fields, such as the Earth's magnetic field. In other words, a compass would still work inside of a Faraday cage. To a large degree, though, they shield the interior from external electromagnetic radiation if the conductor is thick enough and any holes are significantly smaller than the wavelength of the radiation. For example, certain computer forensic test procedures of electronic systems that require an environment free of electromagnetic interference can be carried out within a screened room. These rooms are spaces that are completely enclosed by one or more layers of a fine metal mesh or perforated sheet metal. The metal layers are grounded to dissipate any electric currents generated from external or internal electromagnetic fields, and thus they block a large amount of the electromagnetic interference. They provide less attenuation of outgoing transmissions than incoming. They can block EMP waves from natural phenomena very effectively, but a tracking device, especially one in the upper frequencies, may be able to penetrate from within the cage. Some cell phones operate at various radio frequencies, so while one frequency may not work, another one might. Okay, so, all right, now we're educated on the Faraday cage.
Yeah, and if that would work, you would think that they would build all our embassies that way.
Right.
Because in most countries, they're well, like in Cuba, how they made all those our diplomats sick, blasting them with some kind of electronic
They were
signal.
microwaving them, weren't they? Was that how?
It was just something like that. But that brings up another really, really big threat right now. I mean, I call, illegal immigrants future Democrat voters. They allow them to come in and they make sure that they know that it's the Democrats that are doing it. Mm-hmm. And so almost all of the people that come across the southern border, who they don't even test for the virus.
Right.
I mean, if you leave this country and go to Europe, you're going to have a negative test and be quarantined and everything to come back to your own country.
I mean, the pitch south of the border should be just get across the border and the U.S. will fly you to Scottsdale and put you up in a luxury hotel. Because that's actually happening. That's not a conspiracy theory. Now.
Oh, I know. It's absolutely happening. And yet,
now I'm not saying they're all lounging around the pool in the lap of luxury, ordering up, cocktails with little umbrellas. But it doesn't change the fact that they are flying them to Scottsdale and putting them up in, and maybe all the cheap hotel rooms have been filled up, and so now there's nothing left but the more expensive. So, I mean, you can take facts and spin them all kinds of ways. Facts change, but truth never does, sort of a thing. And I'm sure you'll get to this as you're talking about the southern border, and you mentioned Cuba. We have this influx that nothing's being done about, I guess, coming across the southern border. But why is our country? Why is the administration saying no to the people that actually want to flee persecution in Cuba? Maybe that's part of what you're planning to talk about, but I'm curious about that.
About
why the Biden administration told the people in Cuba don't come here.
Yeah, right. First he tells them to come here, and then publicly he tells them don't come here. But they've gotten the message. They make sure that the human traffickers and so on have the message. They all know exactly how to do it. They bring unaccompanied minors. They can be someone that's 17 and a half years old, but they're a minor, right? And they get them in.
Yeah, if you got no papers, you can say you're any age. I identify as whatever.
Yeah, and a lot of children that come across are 2 and 3 and 4 years old. Now, nobody can convince me that they made the journey from Guatemala to the United States border by themselves. Their parents brought them there. They made sure they got across, and we've seen pictures of them throwing children over the wall and somebody catch them on the other side, or climbing up there and dangling them by one arm and releasing them. Get the kids in, and then the rest of the family can come in. And we're not talking about mom and papa and brother and sister and grandma and grandpa. We're talking about the family. One child could get 50, 60, 70 family members into the United States legally. And practically none of them have legitimate asylum claims. The great majority never show up for their court hearings. But the ones that do, only about 5% are found to have even a tenuous claim for asylum. In other words, fear for their life, fear of imprisonment for their religious beliefs, or because of their ethnicity. I mean, that's what asylum's for. It's not because I'm poor and I'm looking for better opportunity. We all want to see everybody have whatever possible opportunities there are. But our country has 5% of the people in the world. And 90% of the rest of them want to come here. The math don't work, right? So we're allowing the people that don't have legitimate claims come in, and it's worse than what you said as far as flying them or busing them to certain cities and putting them up in hotels. In a lot of cases, they're just bringing them into towns and dumping them. They just say, get out of the bus and someone will take care of you. And then the bus drives off. And here's this town in the Midwest that has no way, they don't have anybody there that speaks the language. They have no way to take care of these people. And yet they're now responsible for them. So I was real proud, even though Washington is a pretty liberal state, a few years ago, when they had 3 busloads of 50 people in each bus, 150 people, they were going to bring into this little town of 5,000 people. And they heard about it. They got out there with their trucks and their tractors. They blocked the highway. They had their shotguns. And they said, you're not coming through. And there was a standoff. And finally, the bus driver said, well, I don't get paid enough for this. Right. And they turned around and left. it takes people standing up. But yet Mallorca yesterday says if any Cubans come, they will not be allowed into the United States. Why?
Mayorkas was born in Havana, Cuba, and fled the country for the U.S. with his family following the Cuban Revolution in the 1960s.
Yeah. So if anybody would be sympathetic to these people who have legitimate asylum claims, I mean,
Yes.
we saw the video yesterday of this young journalist in Iran where the secret police broke into her house and just grabbed her and took her away. That's happening in Cuba right now, but you don't see it on the news.
No, and people are starving right now. I mean, legitimately starving. I have a friend who's also a pastor, and he went on a missionary trip to Cuba. It's been a few years ago now, but we talked about it the last time he and I saw each other and had coffee, and he said, Dwayne, you absolutely wouldn't believe it. The government controls the food supply, and he said most people, once they get their monthly allotment of food from the government, they don't have enough food to last them until the end of the month.
That's true.
In a country where, I mean, let's face it, there's no shortage of food on planet Earth. Restaurants, grocery stores, they throw out food by the tons every single day across this country. Stuff that didn't sell, stuff that's going out of date. I mean, and people are starving to death. So it's
Here's
not
what
that
happened
we
just this. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, here's what happened just this morning. After our Homeland Security people said, you will not be allowed in the United States, then that emboldened the Communist Party. So just this morning, they cut off the internet, which is very common in a dictatorial state.
Right.
But they also cut off the power and the water. I mean, talk about having control over the people. I mean, I could live without the internet. I could even live without electricity. I can't live without water.
No, you can't.
So, and yet we have intervened all over the world.
So you're saying this happened today?
Just this morning, I just saw the article.
So what, Cuba turns off water?
Yeah.
Cuba turns off water. Let's just see what. Go to news. Let's see if it's being reported in the news. Gee, why would that not be in the news?
It was on one of these news feeds. I have all this stuff popping up on my computer all the time from Yahoo News and so on.
I see Cuba's internet cut off 3 days ago. I'm not doubting what you're saying. I just wanted to. I just wanted to. What's the reason? Is it because the people are protesting? Is this their way of punishing the people for protesting by turning off their electricity and their water and their internet? Is that the deal?
Yeah. There have been protests throughout the years, like the ladies in white, where their husbands have been disappeared and they've never been told where they are, what prison they're in, or whether they're dead or not. There have been isolated protests in Cuba. My wife's from Cuba, so we hear a lot about these things. But this is the first time that it's been a national thing. There are protests in practically every city. Thousands and thousands of people are rallying. And like one of the commentators was saying today, they're not rallying to get food or handouts or the vaccine, or any of that. All they want is freedom, and to choose their own destiny. But that's never going to happen as long as the communists are there, and as long as our White House supports the communists. I mean, remember when Jimmy Carter went down there and he put his arm around Fidel's shoulder and he said, Fidel Castro is one of the great revolutionaries of our time. This is the guy who supposedly was a Christian. And at that very time, they were murdering.
Why would he say such a thing? What could he gain? What could he possibly hope to gain by making such a statement? And why would he even believe that? I mean, I'm mystified.
Have you ever heard of an organization called the Socialist International?
I can't say that I have.
Well, basically, it's an umbrella organization of organizations. And every communist party and every socialist party in every country is a member of it. I mean, we have a communist party here in the United States. We have a socialist party. They're members. But guess who else is a member? The Democrat Progressive Caucus. In Congress, they have various different caucuses, like the Black Caucus. They push things that have to do with the black community. They have various different caucuses. Overall, all the Democrats are part of the Democrat Caucus, and all the Republicans, and of course the so-called independents always caucus with the Democrats. But then you have these little smaller groups. So the Democrat Progressive Caucus, I did an article on this about 8 years ago, and there were 53 members of the Democrat Party who were part of the Democrat Progressive Caucus, which was a proud member, according to their website, of the Socialist International. So there's your reason. I mean, basically, the Democrat Party is a socialist party. They're Marxist, and they protect each other. They watch out for each other.
The International Socialist Organization was a Trotskyist group active primarily on college campuses in the U.S. that was founded in '76 and dissolved, it says, in 2019. The organization held Leninist positions on imperialism and the role of a vanguard party. So,
well, they could say they dissolved, but they're still very much active. As a matter of fact, when I wrote the article, I'll find where I posted. I'll send it to you. I put a link to the Socialist International to the page where they listed all the member parties, including the Democrat Progressive Caucus, and then I put a link to the page on the Democrat Party where it listed all of their members, and I published all the 53 members. I said, if your representative is part of this thing, let him know he's not going to get reelected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with the days,
well, this Warnock guy that won this election in Georgia, I mean, he proudly admits that he is a socialist, correct? Or am I wrong on that?
He probably does. I haven't really followed him that closely.
So, I mean, I grew up in Georgia. I know the people. I know how they think. And I know that was several, decades ago that I grew up. But, I know the heart and the mindset of people that populate the Deep South, that they would go to the polls and knowingly elect someone who supports the cause or the concept of socialism. Mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing.
Well, like I say, within a couple of days of my publishing that article, all the names of the members who were part of it were taken off the website, and the Socialist International, which is socialistinternational.org. At least that's the one that's coming up right now.
Yeah, I just had, what did it say on my page here?
It was Wikipedia. You know how liberal they are.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Sure.
Solidarity.
I lost my link, I guess. But anyway, I think it was the same. I think it was what you just said.
Yeah. I want to find the...
Socialist International, or International Socialist.
The organization's called the Socialist International, and I'm at socialistinternational.org. I don't know if this is the same website, because anybody can put up a website.
Yeah, socialistinternational.org. I see that, yeah.
Yeah.
Progressive politics for a fair world. Priorities on democracy, COVID-19, and peace discussed by members in Africa. It's pretty terrible what's going on in South Africa right now.
It is. My former associate pastor used to live in South Africa, and they couldn't go anywhere, and this is 20 years ago. They couldn't go anywhere.
No, our ties are to
armed.
Uganda, but Agnes's brother lives in South Africa.
Yeah. Well, they had to be armed at all times because they were in danger. And as you know, you mentioned a minute ago, there's plenty of food in the world. In Africa, in general, as a whole, there's lots of food.
I remember the first time I went to Africa. I reached down. We were out at the orphanage, and I reached down, and I scooped up a handful of dirt, and it was some of the richest looking soil I think I've ever seen. You know, there's a difference between dirt and sand and fertile soil, and this was some good soil, but yet all around me, people are starving. There, a lot of it has to do with the lack of education. Number one, people don't own the land, and then number two, they don't have an education. Now, not that you need an education to be a farmer. Obviously, we had farmers before we had teachers and schools and all of that. It's just mind-blowing.
Well, take Zimbabwe for one example. What was his name?
Mugabe.
Mugabe.
Yeah.
He went around and took the farms away from all the white farmers who were producing more per acre than most any.
Well, wait a minute, that sounds
country in the
familiar.
world.
That bill that just got shot down. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. The U.S. government was going to give some kind of aid to farmers who were not white. That's all you had to do to qualify, was to not be white. Was it you and I that talked about that?
We did. Well, this actually happened in Zimbabwe, and they didn't have to go
so
to Congress.
That's a little different backdrop. I mean, you know,
he's a dictator, and basically he took the farms away from the white farmers, and if they didn't like it, he just killed them on the spot. And he gave them to his political cronies who didn't know how to farm. I mean, they were just guys who had run a shoe shop or whatever, but they supported him. And so within a few years, Zimbabwe was starving because no one knew how to farm. So It's not a
I'm
black
sure
or
some
white.
people in the audience are going,
It's a
duh,
government.
you put a seed in the ground and, pour some water on it. Well, it can be that simple, but it's not really that simple. So
These days, you really, if you're going to run a big farm, you need a degree in agriculture, because the types of fertilizers used by my brother and sister-in-law have a grove of lychee trees. And
I'm not familiar with that tree.
well, lychees are a real popular fruit in China, and they sell for a lot of money. They look kind of like a strawberry, but they got a big seed inside. They're pretty good. But they have to have scientists come out there and check the soil, 'cause if the pH is not just right at all, then the tree's dying, So farming has got a lot more complicated, especially since you've got evil companies like Monsanto. They sell seed, and the way farmers have always done it, they take seed from the crop and plant the next crop. But they've genetically engineered their seeds to where they can only be used one time, and they don't produce any more seed. So they're ensuring themselves cash flow forever. And it makes it much, much more expensive to farm. So
I remember the little town I grew up in, Georgia. Actually, I grew up in a little town called Thompson, which is outside of Augusta. Augusta's like a medium-sized city. Atlanta's the big city, but there were certain days that you could go out in the yard, and there was this horrible smell in the air. It was really bad. And I remember the first time I ever asked, "Hey, Mom, Dad, whatever, what's that smell?" "Oh, it's the Monsanto plant." I don't know what they were making, what they were manufacturing in Augusta, Georgia at the Monsanto plant back in the, I guess it would be the mid to late 60s, early 70s.
But you sure didn't want to eat whatever it was they were making over there, right?
Well, my stepfather, he had a very large garden. He was, I guess, like a, what do they call it, a hobby farmer. The house, I don't know how big the plot was that he gardened, but it was sizable. It's bigger than my front yard. It was in our backyard there. But I'll never forget one time my stepfather got up and headed outside, and I asked my mom, "Where's TJ going?" His name was Thomas Jefferson. Everyone called him TJ. I said, "Where's TJ going?" She goes, "Well, son, he's going out to poison the garden." And I was like, "He's what?" I said, "He's going out to poison the garden." I go, what, Mom, why? Son, you gotta, if you don't put the chemicals on the vegetables, then the bugs will just eat them up. And so, being, a 6 or 7 or 8 year old kid, whatever it was, when I asked the question, and then that wasn't a one-off. As I grew older and grew up, that was a commonly used terminology. That when you were putting the pesticides on your crops, the term was, it's time to go poison the garden. And wow.
You get that accent down just right, man.
It comes naturally. So Monsanto. Anyway, I think they're big in I know they're in the seed business. I'm assuming they're in the pesticide business. And I don't know what they were cooking up down in Augusta. But, man, it was a putrid smell.
I was just
and it
going to
wasn't
say,
every day. Perhaps it was on days when the wind was blowing in a certain direction or something. I don't know. Because whatever evil thing they were doing inside the place, and it had like the big smokestack kind of thing coming up, So whatever.
Well,
evil
whatever
thing-
they were making from the way you described the smell, it's probably not something you'd want to eat. You know.
Monsanto, Augusta, Georgia. Well, Augusta, Georgia popped right up. Maybe that's like their evil world headquarters or something. It's a. Oh, this is the first result, courtesy of Google. Monsanto Corp, Augusta, Georgia. The 75-acre Monsanto Corp Augusta plant Superfund site is located in an industrial park in Richmond County. The facility is a phosphate manufacturing plant that has been operating since 1962. Phosphoric acid, one of the plant's raw materials, was previously manufactured at the plant, but it's now imported from off-site. Now, the fact that it's a Superfund site, doesn't that mean, what does that mean?
Well,
okay, so the EPA's Superfund program is responsible for cleaning up some of the nation's most contaminated land and responding to environmental emergencies, oil spills, and natural disasters. To protect public health and the environment, the Superfund program focuses on making a visible and lasting difference in communities, blah, blah. So, I guess, whatever they were doing,
yes, fund set up and the money provided to be used. It's like a slush fund, but it has to be used for certain things. Wikipedia has a list of all the party members of the Socialist International. There's Socialist International parties in government.
Wayne in the chat box said Enemy of the State, a movie starring Gene Hackman, Will Smith, and John Voight, is a great movie about spies, Faraday cages, etc., with a great ending. Thanks, Wayne. I'll have to check that out. Enemy of the State. So we can all learn more about the Faraday cage. So.
Yeah, and there's another of the great threats to us. The fact that every phone call, every email, every text is spied on by the NSA.
Right.
And, you know, you hear the expression lying while telling the truth, right? So they say, well, we don't listen to your phone calls. Well, of course, they couldn't. It would be impossible to listen to all those phone calls. But they've got acres of server farms with huge capacity, and they're recording everything. So that if they ever find that you say something that they consider disloyal to Biden, for instance, they can go back and then they will listen if they feel like they have a reason to every phone call you've ever made.
Probable cause, right? Yeah.
So we are fast becoming a socialist country on Christian Financial Concepts. There's a video there where General Jerry Boykin, who was the one that was used to be the head of all special forces, but in this context, more importantly, he was the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. So he knows what he's talking about.
The Deputy Undersecretary
of Defense for Intelligence.
The titles that folks dream up. Crazy.
I know.
Deputy Undersecretary.
Basically, his portfolio was intelligence within the Pentagon. And
which in and of itself is an oxymoron.
Yeah, there's a lot of oxymorons, like
giant shrimp.
Yeah, jumbo shrimp. There you go. That's a good one.
Jumbo shrimp.
But military intelligence, that's actually, they tried to recruit me for military intelligence when I was in the Marine Corps. as well, I was still in boot camp. I got called to go over to this place, and I'm interviewed by this guy for a long time, and they offered to put me in naval intelligence because I had a very high IQ, and but I had to sign on for an extra 6 years.
Right.
And this is while I'm in boot camp. This is when they come up to you and say, "Oh, Miss Barrett, you haven't been knocked out today, have you?" "No, drill instructor." Whack! And they cold cock you, you know? So they picked the wrong time to ask me. Once I got out of boot camp and found out that the Marine Corps was not that bad a lifestyle, I probably would have taken it because it would have been very interesting, you know? But anyway.
I had a top secret security clearance, and I was privy to, you know, a lot of stuff. But my head wasn't in the game, as they say. You know, I joined at 17, and so I was an 18-year-old traveling to places like the Philippines, and I was just being, shame on me, I was just being a wild and crazy, you know. The term drunken sailor exists for a reason, so.
You were a punk, right?
I'm sorry, I was a punk?
Yeah, a drunken punk.
Oh, okay. I guess I was.
Oh, Lord. Well, I'm glad you reformed.
Yeah, I'm no longer in the Navy.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on this Socialist International. It's really interesting how a little guy like me writes something and you get a reaction to it. Because, I mean, literally within a day or two at the most after I published it, every one of those names of the Democrat Party members were taken off the website.
Interesting. Do you think it was because of what you had written, or?
Well, I think at least indirectly, because once they realized that people were going to see that their elected representative was a member of the same organization that the Communist parties of Russia and China and the Socialist Party of France and so on ran, they would not be very happy. By the way, they changed the name from the Democrat Progressive Caucus to the Congressional Progressive Caucus, but that doesn't change the fact there's not a single Republican. Oh, and Ilham Omar, one of the squad members,
Right.
is the whip of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. It just blows me away. What we stand for. Climate justice. What is climate
There's
justice?
a mouthful.
A fair economy. They say that poverty is a policy choice. So in other words, the government decides to make people poor. And the thing is, Dwayne, every time they promise something is going to, and I'm talking about the big government people, they promise something is going to take care of everything, and it ends up taking care of nothing. Like when they came out with Medicare, LBJ said it would cost the average American $1.50 a month. American family, every family it would cost them $1.50 a month, and it would ensure universal health care, right? Well, I don't see any universal health care going around, but the average family pays probably $500 a month today into Medicare. Social Security, biggest Ponzi scheme in history. People tell me all the time, well, I'm just getting the money out that I paid in. Not even close. The average recipient of Social Security gets 6 times as much money as they ever put into it. And it's not because it's growing and making money and therefore it can afford to pay more. Not at all. They have the money all in loans to the general fund, which means they're making like 2.5%. So that didn't even cover inflation. Medicare, the average Medicare recipient over his lifetime will receive almost 10 times as much money as he put into it. So the bottom line is, when you draw Social Security, some young person who's working now is paying for your Social Security because the money you put in when you were younger paid for somebody else. So it's a Ponzi scheme because they're taking one person's money and paying somebody else off with it. The problem is there were something like 48 people for every one retired person when they started Social Security. And now it's down to like 2 or 3 that are paying in for every one person that's taken out, because they didn't notice, they didn't project the fact that lifespans would increase. Do you know why they have 62 as the age you can draw Social Security?
Why?
Because
that was the average life expectancy at that point in time.
Right. So they figured they're going to practically have to pay nothing.
Ding, ding, ding.
Oh my. Oops. Speaking of ding, 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 I just looked at the clock. I got a boogie. But it's been fun.
Can we watch?
Can you watch?
You said you're going to boogie. We want to watch.
Oh, no. I never let anybody see me dance.
Boogie Nights. I watched, I was scrolling through the TV thing the other day, killing time, and my son and I were waiting on my wife to go somewhere, and Saturday Night Fever had just been added to some streaming channel. And so I said, "You've never seen this, right, son?" He goes, "No." So I clicked on it. What a blast from the past that was. That movie and the album, the soundtrack from the movie by the Bee Gees, probably one of the top-selling albums of all time. That was such a part of, you know how certain songs make a real imprint on you because
Sure.
you know it's popular at a certain time in your life. And I had just joined the military. That movie, I think it came out, and the album came. I think it was either 76 or 77.
Excuse me, Dwayne. I really have to go.
Okay, all right, and that's when I joined the military, and I was hanging out in the clubs on the base, and disco was all the rage, and so, okay, buddy, it's been nice. Look forward to next time.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks.
All
God
right,
bless.
bye. All right, guys, let's go back to the S&P. Okay. As Dr. Tom was talking, I drew in this little window of opportunity. I also put out an alert. As he was talking, I was typing. So we had an alert to be short the S&P. That's Pacific time. So 11/12/1, 1:03 a.m. Eastern. And the idea was to simply be short 43.44 to the initial target at 42. And of course, on every short alert, the final trade to target is the weekly zone below on a short. It's the weekly zone above on a long. And so we sailed right through that weekly trading zone. Only 3 things happen at a weekly zone. The most likely thing is consolidation. The second most likely is rejection. The third and least likely, about 5 to 10% of the time, but it happens, as you can see. When the slice happens, price, when the move runs out of steam, price will typically retrace back to the zone that is sliced through and then continue in the direction of the slice. So that's what we would be looking for here. We'd be looking for these buyers push us back up to the zone where we would expect to find good resistance, and then we would look for price to continue in the direction of the slice. Now this alert, it's done. Okay. Now should price poke its head back up again above the entry at 43.44, would that become a tradable event all over again? Of course. Why was the entry 43.44? Well, because we needed to break support. We had the chart telling us there's support here on this 30-minute candle, on this 30-minute candle, on this 30-minute candle. So just like on that one from yesterday, okay, the tradable event is created when you trade from support to support, okay, and that's what happened there. And so here we needed to break this support. Once that support's out of the picture, then the next logical spot for the market to find support is at the weekly trading zone below. When price drops to a zone, we expect it to be good support until proven otherwise. 70 to 75% of the time, what happens is we consolidate. The market's making up its mind. Is it going to go to the zone below or the zone above? That's what the consolidation at the zone is all about. The second thing, 20-25% of the time, rejection. That's when the only thing left touching the zone at the end of the 30-minute period is the wick. That's rejection. This is the slice. Okay. Now, on the alert that I just put out, because this one's already done, that one's a thumbs up, and so this one is based on a couple things. Number one, we want to break that low. Now, if we go up here, find the resistance we're looking for, I'll put out an additional alert, and at the end of that alert it will say previous alert still valid. Okay, because if price comes up here to the weekly zone, and whether it consolidates or gets rejected, it gives us a window of opportunity right here. Okay, and so if I put an alert out on this one, at the end of the alert it will say previous alert still valid, which would be referring to this one. This one's already completed. Now, if we go to the daily chart, we talked about price. We said we're below the step line, and so potential support below us is here at the 24% Fibonacci price extension. That's what we're sitting on top of right now. Okay, and then below that, the 24% Fibonacci retracement of the last leg up. The last leg up is the leg that began on June 21st to the high put in yesterday. We got a slightly higher high yesterday, right? 84.5, 83.75, yes. So the move that began June 21st through yesterday, that's the last leg up. The 24% fib retracement is at 43.22. We came down to the 24% fib extension. Now that fib extension is arrived at by using this tool, the fib extension tool, and going from this low at 41.26 to this swing high to this retracement low, and then 14th century math projects into the future potential resistance or targets. You can look at it either way. Fibonacci retracement tells you where you can expect to find support, whereas the extension tool projects where you may find resistance. One shows you support, the other shows you potential resistance. So if we trade below this 43.30, 43.33 I guess it is, 43.33, then once that potential support is out of the picture, the next area of support is at that 24% fib, 43.22. And so the alert reads 43.30. See, we want to get below this area. That line's 43.33. So we want to get below that, because right now that's acting as good support. That's what we anticipate. But if sellers remain committed and push us down through that support area, then we want to be short the market at 43.30. The initial target is always $100 per contract, except the NQ. Because of its volatility, the initial target is $200 per contract. So you've got an initial target, and you've got a second target, and then you've got your final target. 43.22 is potential support. So we trigger in at 30. If you're only going to take 2 points out of the trade, then you can't risk more than 2 points. Now, if you're going to trade the trade as it's published, okay, from 43.30 to 43.11, that's 19 points. So there is 19 points of profit potential in this alert. The maximum we risk on an alert, no matter how much profit potential it has, is we don't want to risk more than $300 per contract per trade, less when possible, using market structure and that three-step method. Okay, so max 300, less if possible, with the exception this has 19 points of potential profit. But if you know going in you're going to exit with your 2 points for the day, then you have to use that three-step process to trigger in at a spot where the chart allows you to only risk $100. You cannot risk more than the potential profit. Now, while the alert itself has 19 points of potential profit, it doesn't mean you can't exit on the way down. I mean, right here, I'm telling you at 43.22, you may need to take an exit there. So as you go into the trade, are you going to exit here, or here, or here? Now, the best laid plans of mice and men, blah, blah, okay? From 43.30 to 43.22, initial target, second target. That's 8 points. Okay. But you still, if let's say you just figure, you know what, I'm going to get out of that fib because we're probably going to get a really good bounce, and we probably will. So why did I even bother putting in the third target? Because that's how all alerts read. Price is always trying to get to a zone from the moment the market's open until they close. Okay, we had our slice, we had our pullback to the weekly trading zone. So now We expect this to be good resistance. We could open the next candle in 17 minutes, start printing red, and trigger this. Or we might consolidate with some small body candles for a bit, and then make the move down. Is it possible that buyers are so committed that they push us up through this zone? It's possible. If that happens, then what was once support, these are 30-minute candles, so this was support for hours, right? Until it was finally broken through. If buyers are really committed, enough so to push us up through this zone, then we would expect this area that was once support to become good resistance, which would then give us an opportunity to trade this area again, and then trade this area, and then trade this area. See, now that second target, 43.22, right here, 24% fib. If we get through that 24% fib off the daily chart, then the trade to target is on a short, it's always the zone below. This is why you need to study the chart before you place the trade. Never trade an alert just because it's an alert. The purpose of the alerts is to teach you to find these windows of opportunity, like you just saw me do here, here, okay? Now, at the same time, I put out alerts on the S&P, put out an alert on the Dow, put out an alert on the Russell. What was the alert on the Russell? The Russell was to be short 21.81, right here. Here's what the alert looked like. Valerie has it. I just did these, so she hasn't had an opportunity yet to do the recap. So short 21.81, initial target $100, 2 points, $50 a point. Potential support at 21.73. Why? Because that's where the chart tells us to expect support. And then the weekly trading zone, which is the lowest weekly zone for the Russell this week, is way down there at 21.20/21. Now, because I was doing this in the middle of the radio show, could I have not looked over here and found different areas for potential support? Yes. However, oh, did I just do that? I did. Okay. It happens. I undocked the NQ. That's okay. I've got it saved. I can just relaunch it. E7. Alright. So buyers are pushing us up, okay? This is a very, very nice bullish push, but that's okay. Because we already had this. So now we're going to expect this to be resistance. Now you've got the step line right at the top of that window. You got red and falling right there. And this line, which was once support, we now expect to be resistance. So now we just have to be patient, because there's still 13 minutes left in the life of this candle. During the next 13 minutes, will buyers throw in the towel and just consolidate here? Or will they keep pushing and get us up to this area? Only time will tell. Don't try to second guess what the market's going to do until the market shows you what it's trying to do. See, this candle is really slowing down. Okay. Okay. Buyers saw this as an incredible buying opportunity, so they dove in, man. Right? But at some point, everybody's in. at some point, everybody that wants to buy has bought. And once everybody that wants to buy has bought, buying stops. Sure, you got, some guy over here that, buys another, one contract, and somebody over here buys two. But I'm talking about the larger institutional type buying. Now, this is a 30-minute chart. So this area of support, it's going to show up on an hourly chart. Okay. It's also going to show up on a daily chart. There's no institutional trader in the world who is not aware, any technical institutional trader in the world, there's not one who isn't aware that 4322 is a 24% Fibonacci retracement of the last leg up. Now, that creates the potential for a self-fulfilling prophecy, because technical analysts respect fibs, consider them valid. So do I. They're part of our DNA. A flower, a pretty woman's face. Google fib face sometime when you don't have anything else to do. A fib face makes babies coo. A non-fib face makes babies cry. I'm being serious. Go read about it. Okay. Now, not every technical analyst uses Fibonacci price extensions, but a lot do. So, enough that, would it just be random happenstance that price stopped falling right at the 24% Fibonacci price extension? Could be. Could be just some weird anomaly. Or it happened for a reason. Question now is, as this move runs out of steam, who's going to move? Who moves next? We've pushed up through the zone. Okay. So we sliced, we retraced to the zone, we've gone beyond the zone, right? So we actually sliced it that way, and now we've sliced it that way. Typically, the slice would have found resistance here, and then continued in the direction of the slice, based on the last 7,800 whatever alerts that we've put out over the last 154 weeks. Now, not every trader, we have the weekly trading zones. We understand how they work, blah, blah. We've been publishing them and using them for a decade, over a decade. Okay, so this is not something that every institutional trader has on their chart. In fact, very few. Some, but few. All right? So not everybody sees this. But every technical analyst worth his salt, whatever that means, understands the importance of this dynamic right here. Now, this dynamic you cannot see on a daily chart. There are things you need intraday charts for, and there's the reason I give you every day of why you need the daily chart. Okay? But using the daily chart, at the beginning of the show, we discussed exactly what the high probability move was, and it did it. Question now, are sellers more committed than buyers? See, that support area that you can see on the 30-minute chart here, it's not visible on the daily. This is why we recommend that you learn multiple time frames. This is why we teach you how to use multiple time frames. So as price comes up, we expect that to be good resistance, and at that point a move back down to the zone. We slice the zone that way, sliced it this way, we come back to the zone again. Good spot for consolidation. Buyers are more committed. we'll start building a leg to the upside. The BBC, of course, we expect to be good resistance. If sellers are more committed, then continuation to the downside. All right. So the Dow triggered last night its CTA at 8 p.m. Eastern. And it triggered a couple times. The number was 772. And we dropped down to 725. It's 50 points, $250 per contract traded. And then important prices, important areas, almost always tested. Price got back above the trigger, triggered again. This time we went from 772 to 590. Let's just call it 600. So that's 172 points at $5 a point. On the Russell. On the Russell. The alert that was just put out was to be short 2181. So I wanted to take out that low and trade to that low. 2181 to 2179 to 2173, which is that low. And then the final trade to target is the zone below at 2120/21. Crude oil. We triggered the short CTA multiple times. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Okay. And each time we found support where at the weekly trading zone, 7180/85. Zones were given to our members Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern, as we've done for over a decade. The zones are fixed support and resistance. Once published, they're good for the entire week and they do not change. And so the trip from 72.15, 71.85, $300 per contract traded. Did it once, did it twice, did it 3 times. It's working on time number 4. Gold triggered on the long side. 1832 took us up to 1835. So a $400 per contract move back below the trigger, and then a lesser move that took us up $200 per contract traded. Price dropped, found support at the zone. Now it's attempting to trigger again. If we can take out this high, then we've got a window of opportunity up to the zone. Got to clear that resistance first. Silver triggered a number of times on the long side. The CTA did. Currently we're consolidating right at the zone. And the NQ, which I undocked. Hate it when that happens. Okay, the CTA last night was 14,888, and we dropped to the target at 14,875, basically to the tick. So from 88 to 78, that's $200 per contract traded. Then it did it again, another $200 per contract traded. Then it did it again, and then it did it again. Two-sided action on the NQ. We triggered on the long side, which took us from 932 to the zone overhead. $200 per contract traded. It went a little bit further. And that's it. We're all done. That's a wrap. Put it in the can, as they say. So here we are, the S&P on the daily. Here we are, the S&P on the 30-minute. Okay, we've reached that area. Okay, so I encourage you I've got to end the show now, but I encourage you to watch this and see how it plays out. This is a great object lesson. Okay? Whatever happens, markets are always right. But we know what the next high probability move is. Now, that doesn't mean we know what's going to happen next, because we don't. No one does. But this is a business based on probabilities. And so we know what the next high probability move is. Could the market do something completely different? It can. In fact, we have 154 weeks of data, day after day after day, that says, in fact, the market does do something different than the next high probability thing 20% of the time. Oh, and the recap, I had missed where Valerie had, in fact, updated that, and I was looking for love in all the wrong places. That what it was is it says Tuesday. It's actually Thursday. Let me make sure I got that right. Yes, Valerie sent me a recap today, the 15th. What I had failed to see was that. Hang on, let me fix it, and then we'll end the show right now. Okay. The recap. Looks like, see, we had, at the time of the recap, we had 0 waiting, not 2. Now we have more because during the show I put out a number of alerts and some of them have triggered and done their thing and blah blah. So there'll be another recap coming out later, but right now, not counting the ones I just did during the show, 42 alerts, 11 never triggered, 31 actionable, of which 19% would have stopped out based on not risking more than $300 per contract per trade, less when possible, based on market structure and the simple 3-step method. Okay? Okay. So now, yesterday we talked about, or the first part of how to handle disagreements. You know, as believers, we're supposed to behave differently than the rest of the world. It says they will know you by your love. Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Lesson 1. Sometimes the best resolution to a conflict is a separation, even if it's temporary. When emotions run high, you need space to think clearly. And God can use this time of separation for His glory. Because Paul and Barnabas parted, the gospel was preached in even more cities. But when a temporary separation is the best option, you need to agree on how long it will be. In some friendships, one person may have outgrown the relationship, but this should be handled with love and wisdom, realizing that we can all learn from our mistakes and grow through them. Later, Paul wrote, "Get Mark and bring him with you, for he is useful to me for ministry." 2 Timothy 4:11. Lesson 2. When you realize that you've been wrong, you need to acknowledge it. Some people have such a difficult time saying, "I'm sorry." And for that, I'm sorry. For a single-focused leader like Paul, this called for humility. Indeed, it's a comfort to know that someone as anointed and as brilliant as Paul could rethink his position and come to a different conclusion. Mistakes may be bad. They're not as bad as the pride that seeks to defend and perpetuate them. And lesson number 3. You must learn to disagree without being disagreeable. You've heard it said, let us agree to disagree. It's noteworthy that nowhere in Scripture do we find a time when Paul talked publicly about this disagreement. Not everybody needs to know your business. You don't have to put everything out on Front Street, as they say. Both Paul and Barnabas focused on their respective missions. The only behavior you have the power to change is your own. You can't change other people. Often, a lot of marriages don't end well because they began on the wrong premise. A man might look at a woman and say, boy, she's got a lot of potential. Once we get married and I'm able to control her, she'll make a fine wife and a fine mother. That's flawed thinking. And the same is true of a woman who looks at a man and says, wow, he's a good earner, he's good looking, whatever the case. But once we're married and I'm in charge, I'll fix what's wrong with him. He's got a few problems, but I'm going to fix those once we're married. No, you're not. You cannot change other people. The only person you can change is yourself. And you can only change yourself with a little help from God, the power of the Holy Spirit. And this should be your reason for doing so. The only behavior you have the power to change is your own, and this should be your reason for doing so. We will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ. Ephesians 4:15. And that's our good word for the day. Okay. Random chance or happenstance. Price roared up to the little line I drew. Now there's lots of price points on this chart. Sellers could have come in. Buyers could have stopped buying at any point along the way. But the next time somebody tells you support and resistance is old-fashioned, it's horse and buggy, get with the program, buy my very expensive algorithm or indicator set. Now, when these lows were taken out, an alert was issued to trade this opportunity from 43.43 down to 43.40. Okay? We didn't know what would happen next. But we knew that if these lows were broken, that the highest probability was that price would in fact go to the zone below. There was so much momentum that it overshot the zone. And when the move ran out of steam, it reversed. And after being support, 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 no surprise that on the move back up, I mean literally to the tick, it became resistance. And I said just a few minutes ago, as price was coming up through the zone, I said if we go all the way back up to this area, then that alert, you could probably just trade it again. Okay? Because where's the market most likely to find support? First spot at the zone. Next spot at these lows. Remember, price flows from support to resistance back to support over and over again and again. It's a never-ending cycle. From support to resistance. Now the market's looking for support. Price is trying to find support. Will it find it here? Don't know. Don't know what will happen next, but I know that that's the high probability spot. And I know that if price trades through that zone, then the next spot's right here. And then if price trades through that, we know that the 24% fib off the daily chart is the next spot. And if price somehow makes it through that fib today, I mean, that fib should be good for quite a bounce. But if, 20% of the time the price doesn't do the next high probability thing. So if in fact price trades through the 24% fib, then we know that the next spot for good support is 43.10/11. And there's still 2 weekly trading zones below that. So remember, an alert once triggered is more likely to trigger multiple times than not trigger multiple times. So here's the second trigger. And we're done. We're out of here. Reminder tonight, it's Thursday night, members only workshop. If you haven't got your passport yet, go to eminifuturestrading.com today. Get your passport. Valerie will send you all the stuff you need. She'll walk you through the process of getting everything set up and ready to go. And of course, you'll get an invitation to the members only meeting tonight. It is a lifetime membership. There's no recurring annual fees, monthly fees. Once you're in, you're in. You're part of the family. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy and with His grace. And I'll see you at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading E-mini futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.